Hello, welcome to this video on how to make your solid shampoo. So I'm going to try to keep it very simple and show you to begin with what are the instruments you need, all the material you need, and go very quickly through the ingredients you need. So you will have a list of the ingredients and with the exact amounts you need. So I'm not going to go measuring all the ingredients because that will take a huge lot of time. It's a little bit like making a cake, really. You just need to measure each ingredient and then put everything together, and I'm going to show you how. So you're going to need two double boilers. So there's water in each one of these boilers, and it is also known a technique as bain-marie. These are quite big. Obviously you can just use what you have at home, a smaller pan and a bigger pan with water. Make sure there's just enough water for the smaller pan to be not bouncing up and down, but it's touching the bottom of the smaller boiler. So this will be for the surfactants, which are the ingredients that produce foam. That's what leaves your hair nice and clean. These are for the emulsifiers and moisturizers, which are usually together. And then there's then we're going to have one recipient for the active ingredients, which will be something like this, which we add at the end. I'll show you then. So what you also need is going to be a normal tablespoon, one or two spatulas. I recommend these ones because they're more likely to, they're easier to clean and sterilize and so on. If you're making more complex cosmetics, for these cosmetics you don't necessarily need to sterilize because everything is solid, or it is already very stabilized as an ingredient. So I do recommend that you get some of these masks, because the surfactants, these powders, the powders that produce foam, are a little bit irritant. So you also need, if possible, to be in a well ventilated area, but very important is to wear, I like to double these masks, just double them up and put them around your nose and mouth, obviously, whilst you're handling these powders. So then for the first phase, of course you'll need a scale. Okay, it doesn't need to be super professional. A home scale will do. You'll need silicone molds. This is a fancy pressure piece of equipment that helps to flatten the back of the shampoo into the mold like that. But a normal tablespoon will also do the trick. Yeah. So these shampoos, as you see in your formula that you have access to, but I'm sending you, you have three phases. First of all is the surfactants. So you have sodium cocoa sulfate, you have co-camido propylbutane, and this is sodium isethionate, sodium cocoa isethionate. It's quite of a complex name. So these three go in this big pot, in the bigger pot, and then you have the moisturizers, cocoa butter and cetearyl alcohol, that go in the smaller pot. And there you have the active ingredients, that are the wheat protein and the lemongrass essential oil, and these will go in a small measuring cup like this, or you can just have a cup at home. It doesn't have to be a measuring cup. That's going to be the last thing to go in, and that's pretty much it. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you, once everything is measured, the process of how the ingredients look like when they're ready to be put into your mold, and then what you need to do, and then that's pretty much it, and then you have your shampoo. How exciting is that? So just a little bit of information about the surfactants that you're using. So I've went ahead and put them in the first the bigger pot, which is the one with the surfactants, and this is how it looks. So everything is pretty much as it was, has a bit of liquid in there, and as the temperature rises it will start to melt, and it's important that you see how it looks like when it's ready to be mixed with the rest of the ingredients. The sodium cocoyl isenzionate, which is in your formula, needs to be in this powder like this, but when you buy it online it comes in this, like this. So it's coming in bigger chunks. They look a bit, they're quite easy to break, and they need to be ground into a powder. Okay, so you can use, you know, your home blender. If you do use a home blender, you need to wash it thoroughly after, if you're going to use it for food. I would recommend, if you're making your own cosmetics, that you get the cheap. You can get these. I got this one with a glass bottom from a charity shop, so relatively cheaply, very good. So it needs to be ground into as fine as possible. You can see it. It looks almost like flour. It has a few bits, but mostly as fine as possible. Yes, so this was important for you to see. And so we're going to go ahead. So in the matter, when it comes to method, I usually weigh first the surfactants and put them in the pot, and the water is nearly boiling, so you can put it when it's already boiling. That's fine. And whilst this is melting, I have weighed the emulsifiers, which is cocoa butter, raw organic cocoa butter, and the palm oil free cetearyl alcohol. So I have weighed them both, and I'm going to put them in the other double boiler. It's still warming up, and usually once this one is ready, that one is also melted. So it's relatively simple, and once it is ready I will show you to you. It's still melting. It's good to carry on giving it a good stir. Obviously you need to hold the pot whilst you do it. Be very careful not to let the hot water, this is why it's important not to put too much hot water, just enough to touch the bottom of the pan, so that if you press the pan down there's no water bubbling up and burning you. So you need to be quite careful. Alternatively, you can use a safer double boiler, like this one, where it's harder for the water to be boiled out. Usually an inch of water and inside each pot is enough. All of this will be explained in the recipe that I give you. So let's do the next step. So here it is. The surfactants are, it has melted, so it won't turn into a liquid. What you will notice is that the initial powder would not gain any particular shape, and this one, as you press with a spoon, it molds into the shape of the spoon. So basically it obviously is melted to a degree, so you can see that you can make marks on the solid shampoo, on the surfactant, when you use the spoon, whilst initially you only had kind of loose powder, right? So now you can see that it has melted. You know, it does not crumble, and it doesn't it's not loose powder anymore, so it has melted partially, and it's ready to receive the emulsifiers. So basically the emulsifiers have been completely melted, and you can now add them to your there you go. Nothing special, just like making a cake. And now you mix it thoroughly so that the fat gets well mixed with the rest of the powder. also with the surfactant. This is a work of labour of love. You need to try and incorporate as much as possible because these are quite solid. So basically, as you can see, there's a bit of colour there, is the cocoa butter, and you just mash it all up really well, as much as possible, to distribute as evenly as possible the moisturiser by all of the surfactant. So you can see everything is becoming yellowish. So I'm gonna carry on with this, and when it's ready I'll come back to you. So here you go. It's more or less evenly, it's all well mixed up. Has a very pale yellow colour from the cocoa butter, and now we can go ahead and add the last phase, which is the wonderful lemongrass essential oil and the wheat protein, essential to leave that beautiful shine on your hair and to help also with moisturizing of the hair. Simply just add it into it, and you're going to do the same and incorporate it as much as possible with the rest of the soap. It has it will be little white and brown patches if you ever bought these shampoos. That's just how it is. So you just need to try and mix it as much as possible, and there'll always be little patches with more product than other parts. So I'm going to do that, and when it's ready I'll come back to you. Right, so your shampoo is ready to be put into molds. As you can see, it's just mixed up. It's all more or less an even color. It's a pale beige. As it dries out, it will develop different colors as it dries out, because it concentrates the active ingredients. So you simply, I usually leave the pot, I switch the source of heat, but I leave the pot where it is, so it keeps the shampoo nice and melted. And because I do this professionally, I have to weigh exactly each shampoos, and therefore that's what I'm doing right now. I have to turn the scale on, and I'm going to put roughly 60 grams, always a bit more because it evaporates. There you go. And then something you need to do for it to go down into the mold, you can gently press it, and then you have to whack it nice and firmly onto a hard surface, like that. And then you need to leave it to dry quite a bit, and until the top is firm. And then if you want to give it a perfect finish or as good as possible, you just flatten it out with this, or with the back of a wet spoon. You can use a clean wet spoon. This is not so clean, but of course you can get a clean spoon, and just press it down nicely on the sides to give it the best shape possible. So your shampoo has been sitting inside the mold to harden and dry for about a couple of hours, and it's hard enough for you to be able to take it out. You simply push the bottom of the mold and it will come out neatly. It's still relatively damp. You will need to leave it to dry for about 24 hours before using it. Preferably, you could use it straight away, but because it still retains some moist, it would need to dry out. The drier it is, the longer it will last, really, because the water won't infiltrate into the shampoo, so it won't make it soft, and therefore which make it melt faster. So if you let it dry for about 24 hours, it will dry out really well, and then you can use it. Voila!